Are you ready?
Sure.
Hi, Luis. So here we are in our third official studio. I say official because we've used our old offices before as studios. And you remember during COVID, we even used my living room as a studio. But anyway, here we are 6 years after we've launched the crowdfunding of the Dygma Raise. My first question is, talk us through what you had envisioned for Dygma all these years.
I would say that the vision changed through time. So at the beginning, the idea was to create a keyboard for esports professionals. This was because a few years back, I was a head coach in the European League, a video game called League of Legends. And some of the players were kind of injured. They had back pain, neck pain, wrist issues, and so on. For my next step, I was thinking, okay, so let's try to tackle this issue. That eventually turned into what today is Dygma. And actually, our main client are coders. And this makes sense, right? Because instead of being 20-year-old, they are more in the 40 years old range. They have more money because they work and they've been in the computer for a couple of decades probably. So they experience these kind of health issues that young gamers that are professionals that spend basically their life in the computer are experiencing when they are 20 years old, right? This made us realize that actually what we were designing, what we thought was for these professional gamers, actually was for these professionals that spend their life in the computer. This could be video editors, programmers, writers, whatever, right? That was kind of the first thing that we said, okay, actually we shouldn't go this way, we shouldn't go this other way. At some point, Dygma was just keyboard. It was not really a company. Okay, it didn't really have a vision as a company. It was just like a project. There's players that have injuries. I've kind of explored the market. There's no real good options. Let's see if I can create something that it's actually good. But at some point, the keyboard became a reality and this became a company, because you cannot create products just any kind of structure around it. You need to create a company.
Of course.
It's just too complicated doing it yourself. So you need from co-founders to employees, etc. Right?
Yeah.
At some point, this vision of a keyboard actually became a company, a project, and we started thinking further along the line, and kind of our mission or vision became to create a high-performance workstation, but it's not only keyboards. So to create keyboards, a mouse, other peripherals, chairs, etc. That became our new vision, right? And that's kind of the direction we're heading since back then. To be honest, it's quite challenging, and we're moving quite slowly, but we're getting there.
Yeah. Okay. Talking about high-performance peripherals. Where do you see computer or office ergonomics as an industry in 20 to 30 years?
Okay, that's quite a question. So if we think 20, 30 years from now, I would split between office ergonomics and computer ergonomics.
Okay.
Because if we look back, let's say 20, 30 years back, ergonomic chairs, for example, haven't changed that much. The ergonomic space, desks and whatever haven't changed much. Maybe the most recent thing is the standing desk.
Yeah. Well, they do have that ergonomic chair where you sit. It doesn't have
your knees.
your knees.
Yeah, but this was designed decades ago. Yeah, so basically all the ergonomic chairs.
I'm late to the ergonomic party. Yeah,
exactly. So all the ergo chairs were already designed 20 years plus. So if we kind of use the past to predict the future, it looks like there hasn't been much going on. The expensive chairs have become cheap. Any regular person can access a better ergonomic chair for much lower price than back then, right? But if we think in the future about chairs, for example, I'm thinking about electronics, maybe electronics in chairs, using sensors, this kind of stuff moving forward. But from a kind of shape and how you use it, I kind of see it in a similar way. And to be honest, the ideal thing is to change posture. So a standing desk, for example, is ideal in the sense that you're standing sometime, you're sitting sometime, and so on. So maybe more in 20, 30 years, we'll be more aware of the impact on our body. So this will change our habits. I'm not sure until what point it will change specifically a chair. Okay, so about
computer ergonomics.
Computer ergonomics, thank you. So now we are kind of entering this VR world with the headsets and so on. Apple is getting into that too. I guess that's kind of going to open a new area of ergonomics, because the way that you're going to be interacting with the computer is going to be different. But to be honest, that may take 20, 30 plus years to become kind of mainstream. So in the meantime, I think that we will continue seeing keyboards, mouse, etc. being used kind of in a very similar way on how we use it now. But another thing is, like, right now in the third world, how the third world connects to the internet is through phones, mainly, more than computers. Will those people start having computers and start using keyboards and mouse and kind of follow the same path that we follow? Or there will be a different jump? Because when we grew up with the modem, with computers and so on, and then we transitioned to the phone. Their case is different. They went directly with the phone. So in this case, a phone is a square, is a slate, right? But maybe there will be something that we cannot envision, we cannot see right now, that we transition into the computer. Okay, if it's like a tablet or something like this, okay, ergonomic wise is going to be very simple, and eventually they will use keyboards. It kind of feels like the area of more growth, more innovation, more things that we cannot see right now. It's more this VR space, right? They're already using different handhelds, and in the case of Apple, for example, it's everything with gestures. Right now we're seeing kind of two directions, but I'm not expecting anything like when the mouse was created, that we had this weird mouse, or then we had the trackballs, and
it won't be like that.
Yeah. And maybe in 20, 30 years we can have another interview. Hey Liz, what do you think about your predictions?
Exactly. It might be Dygma ruling the world.
Highly likely.
Yeah.
Everyone very comfortable, high performance, enjoying life.
Everybody's efficient,
happy. Yes.
And just everybody's a Dygmate.
Perfect.
I know that being a startup isn't easy, especially in this very niche market, keyboard or computer ergonomics. Was there any moment that you thought, I can't do this, or this isn't going to work?
I was thinking I cannot record this video. I have another meeting.
But you're here.
Okay, no.
Thank you, Luis, for your time. I know it's very precious.
Okay, maybe it's weird, but I never think I can't do something. And the reason behind is that for me, it's a matter of how much time it takes to do that thing that you want to do. Do you have the knowledge to do it? Do you have the money to be able to accomplish it? Then it's a matter of kind of cost and scope. If I think I cannot do something, me or Dygma, then it's a matter of tweaking this scope, this budget, this how much time or this time constraints and so on, right? More than I cannot do this, it's more I cannot do this now, or I cannot do this in this amount of time, or I cannot do this with this budget. I would say that we are learning the process constantly. So to be honest, we actually don't know how to do them. So we could say that we cannot do this, but then it's like a matter of, okay, so if we need more time, or we need more money, or we need whatever, then we continue pushing in that direction.
Always finding a solution.
Yep. Making keyboards is complicated, but it's not rocket science, or it's not like we're not pushing the boundaries of knowledge or whatever, right? So in many cases, it's a matter of focusing in one direction. Even though it sounds simple, it's actually very difficult to focus in one direction, and you have enough time, probably you're gonna reach the goal.
What are some of the hardest decisions you've had to make?
Okay, I would say in Dygma, the hardest decisions probably are hiring, firing, and product/strategy decisions that affect the timeline months to years from now, or from the point that you made the decision forward. In the case of starting with a, let's say, product or strategy, so let's say we want to design a tenting kit. We decide that we want to do it in this particular way because we think it's amazing, and this has actually happened, right? And then we get into the rabbit hole. We're 6 months in, and we haven't found a solution that satisfies us, that doesn't have or the angles or the consistency or whatever, and then we need more and more time to develop. So these kind of decisions, at some point, we have to decide, okay, let's try to make the best product that we can imagine, or let's try to make a product in a reasonable amount of time, a reasonable amount of money, we can develop it. And most of the times that we have to make the decision, we end up going in the route of the too complicated. We try to create the best product in every category. That's a nice way of thinking as a kind of conceptual approach to product. But products exist in real life, and there's factories, and there's SKUs, and there's so many things, right? The Defy has 6,040 something SKUs. It's only one product, but you have keycaps, switches, top panels. So when I said keycaps, I meant languages, but also the color of the keycaps and the palm pads. Then you have the element of the tenting kit, the underglow wireless. So the combination of all of this creates these 6,000 variants, right? This, from an operations and manufacturing standpoint, it's a nightmare.
Yeah.
Mega nightmare.
For the customers, it's amazing because they can customize their keyboard however they want.
And we've always pushed tons of colors, tons of options, etc., because we want to give the customer an awesome experience. But there's a point where it's not sustainable, it's not scalable. And talking with our operations department, the factories and so on, cost analysis and so on, we reached the conclusion it's just not sustainable, right? So at some point we need to make the decision, okay, we need to cut the SKUs. And that's something that we are kind of transitioning to, making these kind of decisions. It's too difficult. We make too much of a jump. And these are the decisions that are very difficult because you want to make an amazing product, but you have to take into account costs, the operation impact, the life cycle of the product, how much, for example, in manufacturing, how difficult it's going to be to manufacture, but also how difficult it's going to be to pass the QC, the quality control. The decisions that we make at the beginning when we are creating a new product have a great impact through months and years. So those are, I would say, strategic decisions that are quite difficult. I would say that we are still learning properly. Then regarding hiring and firing, hiring is very important and very time consuming. If you do it wrong, it takes tons of time to hire who you think is the right person. Then you have to train that person until they get to the 3 to 6 month mark. They are not really productive, right? There's an enormous investment of time from our time to hire someone. Hiring the wrong person, it's a big deal. Something like firing For me, it's particularly difficult because when you hire someone, you're working with that person, you're sharing your professional life with that person and so on, and eventually you have to part ways. On the one hand, you've invested so much time from a professional standpoint, but from the other hand, then all the personal relationship and so on that you've shared, it's really hard. Yes, exactly. So I would say probably these are the three most difficult things, probably.
Starting a company, you have all of these grand ideas and you know it can succeed. So you're thinking of the idea. It's sort of like, how would you say that in psychology? There's a difference between truth and perceived belief. And most of the time we are focusing on our perceived beliefs, even though it's not factual or it's not part of reality.
And to be honest, that's a profile that you want to have in a company, in leadership pushing, because you need to have some kind of vision to kind of rally the troops, you know? Everyone has to go in one direction. And for example, when you're moving forward with, let's say, fundraising with shareholders and so on, or potential investors, that's important too. You need to have a vision to move forward. And another thing is, like, in my particular case, I'm a product person and not like a business person. So I have a million ideas of things that I want to create. And I feel kind of when I started with Dygma, I felt like reality was so slow.
You're just too fast.
I'm too fast for y'all, man.
No, I would say it's just creating hardware is hard.
Yeah.
You know? A product life cycle can take from easily a year and a half, 2 years longer, you know.
You realize how much red tape it has. You have to do QC, you have to have a prototype, you have to have the design prototype, you have to have the manufacturing.
And from the concept idea to a functional prototype to a manufacturable prototype to what you eventually manufacture, all these steps.
It takes 2 years.
It can take 2 years. Yes, perfect.
From our experience.
It can. And all of this costs money. And there's salaries that you have to pay, and then you have to pay a factory and so on, right?
Okay.
So, like, of course, with infinite money and infinite team, we'll be pumping amazing products non-stop, but that's not reality. We're a small startup, so that's just part of the game.
In line with that, the next question is there anything you would have done differently in these last 6 years?
I mean, yeah, for sure. I would
like
tons of the things differently.
What are your top 3, for example?
When we started with the shortcut, what eventually became the Raise, and then we started with the Raise. To be honest, that initial team, we were 3: electronic engineer, industrial designer, and me. That in this case, I'm not an engineer or anything like this. Although our electronic engineer and industrial designer had experience manufacturing things, they didn't have experience developing and manufacturing at this level, consumer electronics as well. We thought that we had to seek for expert advice because we weren't sure how to do what we wanted to do. But eventually what we realized was that we wasted a ton of time. So we spent easily a year working with a design house in China, with another one here in Spain that also had contact with factories and engineering team in China. We believed that we'll say, hey, this is what we want to do. We're unsure how to do it. How would you do it? So what we realized is that these design houses don't really solve problems, or they design their own thing in a very simple way, or when you bring them the problem, they're kind of stuck waiting for you to give them the solution, and then they execute the solution. So it took us a year of working with these design houses to realize that they wouldn't be able to help us. They really didn't know how to solve the problems that we wanted to solve.
They were just waiting on your instructions, basically.
They were not open as we don't know how to do this, we're waiting on your instructions, because then they will lose the contract and they will stop making money. So it was kind of like walking in circles. So there was a point that we were talking and we're like, hey, let's stop trying to figure it out with these people. Let's do it ourselves. It's okay, we don't know how to do it, we will figure it out. And eventually when we made that decision, we started moving forward. I think the Raise development, we could have saved maybe not a year, but close to a year of development that didn't really move forward, and we were moving in circles. And also that would have consequences kind of in the future, because we would have learned sooner and we would have hit the market sooner, and then would have moved on to the next product sooner, and so on, right? More product stuff, I would say. So our first product was the Raise, and our second product is Defy. Even though both of them are split keyboards, the distance from a technological standpoint, it's too much. The Defy is a cable, Bluetooth, and RF keyboard that has a Dentin kit integrated with Underglow 2. All of this had to be reworked. Even things like palm pads, that we have nice palm pads, we have reworked them too. This rework has been too much. Now with the lessons learned, what we should have done is maybe a couple of years back, we should have created a Raise, but with the Defy shape. So this means that no wireless, no new Dentin kit, no, nothing of this, right? So this way we will have been able to hit the market with a second product that was a good product and people were demanding, and we would have had time, while we have these two products in the market, start working on the wireless, for example.
Yeah.
I would say one of the things that we need to learn is that we need to stop doing this kind of large jumps that take years to develop. We do this because we're a bit naive and we're like, yes, let's do it, we can do it, it's gonna be amazing, it's gonna be awesome.
Go Dygma!
Go Dygma, yes, come on, become an engineering team.
Let's create the best YouTube channel as well.
Exactly. Some of the engineers are like, hey, you're crazy. Other engineers are, let's go. We believe always that let's go.
Let's do it.
Exactly, yeah.
And I think even if we create keyboards that are simpler, it'll still be amazing because of the level of high quality that we have and the level of design, that creativity that we put into it. So I think it's also just in your head that we need to create.
No, actually, it's in my head, and I'm the number one guilty person here. Instead of saying, okay, it's gonna have Bluetooth, RF, and cable. Let's say it was cable and Bluetooth, or cable and RF. And that would have made it more simple.
Yeah,
it's a little bit worse, but you still have wireless, right? That's the critical feature here. Or for example, let's say that instead of having this awesome denting kit that has 8 angles, let's say that it was similar to the previous one and it had 6. Okay, It's still an amazing product because there's no other tenting kit like this one in the market.
Yeah,
it's already great, right? And so these are lessons learned.
It's kind of what Apple does. They release different phones, a different iPhone every year, but the difference is so small. There's not actually a big jump.
Yeah, but if you take Apple roots or other companies, at the beginning they were doing much weirder stuff.
Yeah.
And they were, for example, they even have split keyboards. Not split in the sense that you split it in half, but it's two areas that slides and the space bar is in the middle. Or they were innovating with their colors, materials, and so on. For example, in the Mac, that was kind of the big one that you had. I think it was the iMac. You had.
You mean the iMac that was like colored?
Exactly. Yeah. And I remember reading in a book that this was a nightmare from an operational standpoint, So there's companies that have already made these mistakes in the past.
And they became one of the most successful companies, and Dygma will soon follow.
Let's go.
Let's go. Okay, let's go. I have to send that to you.
Okay, sure.
So, being the CEO of Dygma isn't your sole responsibility. You're also the director of esports performance of Movie Star Riders. You work with different people, young players. You work nights and also weekends, and you also travel regularly during the season. How do you do it? How do you find the balance between the two roles? What do you do to ensure that you as a CEO and as a coach can perform the best way you possibly?
Okay, so first of all, both jobs are very different. And this actually helps me because, for example, I could be like really stressed with Dygma problems or whatever, or let's say I'm working with the operations team or the product team or whatever. And that's some kind of, it kind of uses some kind of space in my head. But then when I'm working with the esport team, that's kind of different, refreshing, or it recharges me because it's a different kind of fun. But at the same time, for example, when let's say we are in playoffs and I have to travel somewhere and I'm kind of hardcore working on that, the opposite effect happens. Let's say I have a few meetings in the morning with Dygma and then I'm working, in playoff mode with the team and so on. It kind of happens where kind of the meetings with Dygma pulls me out of that stress, all that situation and so on. It can happen that I'm working many hours every day, weekends and so on. But the truth is I enjoy both works. I would do it for free. But what I'm trying to say is that I do enjoy these jobs. And to be honest, I started Dygma with my money and I had a salary for a long time. And coaching has been my passion for a long time. It really fulfills me. Both things are compatible for me because even though there's a lot of hours of work, they're quite different and I enjoy both of them.
Yeah.
If you're getting paid for something that you enjoy, it doesn't feel like work, right?
Yeah. But I'm assuming you still have your time off, right? So what do you do on your time off?
My time off, I hit the gym.
Oh. Sorry.
Should we start again?
No. I wasn't surprised. But maybe the people at home are. I don't know.
Anyway.
No, go. You hit the gym?
Since I was a kid, I played basketball. I had many injuries, my ankles, my knees, etc. But mainly my knees is the main issue. And this year I was like, okay, I'm going to play again in a basketball team with a bunch of friends and so on. So this summer I was hitting the gym like 5 days a week. I gained a few kilos of muscle and I'm in good shape compared to how I was a few years back. So I would say these are two of the things that I'm doing. I'm playing basketball and I'm hitting the gym. Weirdly, the gym, although I've never liked it, it's kind of helping me kind of mentally in the sense of it's a moment during the day that I don't have to solve problems. It's just like me focusing on my technique and so on. So it's kind of in a way a mental thing that is helping me. And another thing is like I play a card game called Magic the Gathering. I play tournaments in the weekends. Both basketball and Magic were my two favorite things to do when I was young. And now that like 20 years later still are the two things that I enjoy the most to do with my free time. And to be honest, another very important thing that I do, I spend my time with my girlfriend. We go out for dinner, we meet friends, we do small travels from time to time and so on. This keeps me sane
Yeah.
from the amount of work, stress, pressure, and so on. But I enjoy my time too.
So you're not a workaholic. I mean, you're not a robot after all. You do have a social life.
I would say that I'm kind of focused. So, for example, I don't watch TV. I rarely watch shows, mainly with my girlfriend. I'm not in social media. I don't pay attention to news, etc. Right? So I'm very focused on things that I want to do. Because if I was kind of scattered and I wanted to do a little bit of everything, then it's just impossible. So I focus heavily on the Dygma stuff. I focus heavily on the esports coaching and so on. And in my free time, I have a few things that I do, and that's it. If not, it's just not possible.
I think we should all learn from you because no, it's true. Because nowadays I'm guilty of it as well. I'm on social media and it sucks the life out of me because you're just there watching other people's lives. Honestly, I've put the timer already, just 15 minutes a day on social media, but still that's 15 minutes that you can use reading or, I don't know, learning a new card game like Magic.
To be honest, Magic is a game that takes quite some time to learn, but learned it when I was a kid and played through time with friends. So it's that experience of friends and a game.
Yeah.
It's so much fun. And about social media companies have so much money and the best engineers in the world just to make you addicted.
Yeah.
Inevitably, people are addicted, right? But I guess I'm a little bit older, so I didn't grow with social media. And then when social media became a thing, maybe I was already okay not being in social media.
But you're not that old, Luis.
Sure.
Like, Manel's old.
Yeah.
Actually, Mikel is older, and he's on TikTok. I'm not on TikTok.
Yeah, but Mikael has a young spirit, you know.
That's true. What drives you to do what you do?
This, I'm sure, would have been different in different points in my life. When I was a poker player, what drove me was earning the maximum amount of money. I was young and I came from a family that just working class. It was fine, but money was a very important thing. In my early 20s, I was like, okay, I need to make the maximum amount of money. And then there was a point where I realized that up to a point, more money doesn't make any kind of difference. I felt like as a professional poker player, you're basically doing nothing for society or for anyone.
You're just gambling.
You're just gambling.
And getting other people's money.
Yeah, so it's questionable even if you're having any kind of...
I mean, it's not that bad.
You could do much worse things.
Yeah, like
Anyway,
drug dealing.
Just like drug dealing.
More lucrative.
But if those drug addicts are really happy and they're not killing anyone and what...
Sure, for sure. Just dealing drugs. That's all I do.
Like hospitals, for example.
Exactly. Pharmaceutical companies. They're
Questionable
they're
pharmaceutical
watching
companies. Yeah, so back then I realized, okay, this is not fulfilling. Sure, I'm making money, have a good life, but I'm not having any kind of positive impact on other people. So I moved on to coaching esports, and during poker I already coached high stakes players, and it was really fulfilling because you could help them earn more money and kind of hit their goals and so on. Coaching esports, I realized that that's really cool because you're helping 18, 19, 20-year-old youngsters that are professionals and want to become the best in the world, and at the same time you have thousands or hundreds of thousands of people watching you. So this is entertainment, right?
Yeah.
You're helping people grow, but people are having fun watching you work or actually you compete. Once I kind of quit the job, I was thinking, okay, I actually want to have an impact with my work, with what I do. I want to help people have better lives. I think this is kind of where Dygma comes and kind of the what drives me the most. It's like most of our clients or many of our clients have health issues. It could be wrist, neck, back, wherever. And these people buy our products or our keywords to be able to work in the computer. Mm-hmm. Yeah, in some cases, it's people that they cannot work. For example, we have a worker that had an accident and broke both arms, and he cannot use regular keyboards because he cannot rotate his right arm. So he has to use a tendon kit. So this is an example here in the office of someone that cannot use normal keyboards. He would be in a very weird, uncomfortable position, but now he can do it comfortably, right? Even though this is an extreme case, we have many of these clients that had some kind of accidents, or just because they've been 20, 30 years in the computer, they have pain in somewhere. Creating products that make people's lives better is something that really motivates me, even though it sounds kind of cliche. This connected to coaching, it's really fulfilling when you help someone hit their goals. So this is kind of connected to it. If you want to do something and I can help you do that something better, that makes me happy, right? So that's kind of the motivation behind Dygma, and that's kind of also the motivation behind the vision. Even though many days or weeks what I'm doing, it's not fun and it's kind of a struggle and it's difficult, this motivation, kind of internal fire pushes me to keep on moving forward. To be honest, I think we're accomplishing it. We're helping people have better lives. Mm-hmm. That's kind of the most important thing for me.
So you are a superhero.
I'm gonna hit you with the bottle.
It's like when you wake up in the morning, you know, go to office, have a stand-up meeting, check emails, wear superhero cape, and that's you. Great. Freelance. No, I'm being serious. Okay. But as I always thought growing up, there's so many problems in the world, right? But you can't help them all.
You cannot tackle it.
You just choose the one that you think you can contribute to the most and put all your efforts there. And then that's exactly what you're doing. And it fulfills you. And that's what's important as well.
Yeah. And another thing that maybe I didn't mention that also fulfilled me, like design is something that I really, really enjoy. Kind of wowing people with design is something that I really enjoy too. Like if we were doing ergonomic products that were ugly, I wouldn't be happy, to be honest. If the unboxing experience was crap, I wouldn't be happy.
Yeah.
You know, it's not only about this kind of functionality, but it's also about how you feel with things that you have. So in this case, the keyboards, right? This design part is also really, really important for me.
Okay, Luis, I'm sorry. Dygma is going to be sold tomorrow.
Okay.
If Dygma were to be sold tomorrow and you no longer have any responsibilities with the company,
Okay.
what would you do?
First of all, I will have a ton of extra time.
Yeah. And cash as well.
And cash, that's nice too, yeah. So I will spend a lot of time with my girlfriend.
Very good.
Some nice travels, doing stuff together, right? Okay, you're looking at me.
What?
You're like, with a psychopath look. But I would take a few months off. Although I would probably continue working with the esports organization. I would not start new projects immediately. I would probably do more kind of taking care of myself. Let's say focusing on the gym, playing more basketball, meeting more friends, playing more Magic tournaments, and traveling around, having some fun. But at some point, I don't think it will go over 6 months that I want to create something. I want to do something new. So probably I will start some kind of company.
You'll apply back to Dygma.
Yes.
Yeah.
But,
As a product designer.
that would, to be honest, that would be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I hope that the company...
I'd hire you. I would. It's me. I bought.
So you bought it?
I bought the company.
Okay, so I hope if you bought the company, you have a ton of cash because I want to create
Sure.
many amazing products.
I'll give you your own department.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the minimum that I would accept to get back.
Okay. But I take your office. If you could go back in time and talk to Luis back in 2017, what advice would you give him?
First of all, knowing me, probably it's going to be difficult that I convince me with a few things.
He won't believe you.
In some cases, I think he wouldn't. But probably the most important thing is that, I mean, back then, is that when you design a product, you take into account the cost, operational costs, product life cycle, and all these things that we were talking before. Right? It's like, it's awesome that you have the idea of creating an amazing product, but you cannot create the product in a vacuum without thinking about all these consequences, impact, and so on. Talking with him a moment and telling these things, probably he would have needed some coaching. Like, hey, take into account this works this way. When you're gonna be facing this situation, these are the tools, the right tools. Calculate these things in this way. Talk with these professionals that have done so this kind of more like not only giving some advice, but kind of showing a little bit the path and giving some tools. I could actually use that advice.
Yeah.
One of the very important things of this job is stress management, that I think I've become better through the years. But probably something that I kind of neglected at the beginning was my, I would say, physical health. So I've been meditating for many years and that had a great impact. And I've learned through my poker career and coaching about mental health and so on. Even though the physical health is important, I never took it as seriously as I've taken it this year. Like the summer hitting the gym not only had a very positive impact in my body, but also it had a very positive impact in my mind. So probably I would have told little Luis to, okay, this is a priority, this is critical, do it and make sure that this becomes a habit, because taking care of your body takes care of your mind. But taking care of your mind doesn't take care of your body in that kind of way. There's a point where if you know how to do both things, you can integrate them both. Okay, so once you have enough experience training your body and training your mind, you can do both things at the same time. So you can have mindfulness practices when you're actually exercising your body. And I think this would have helped me through the years to regulate better the stress and handle it better. And something that kind of took me some time to learn is that if I break, then everything around me gets impacted. That it's something absolutely obvious, right? Probably it would have been good that I knew this back then, because I kind of knew it, but I didn't put in practice what I should. So actually I was in a great state continuously, or at least in a good enough state continuously, because there's moments that everything is amazing, there's moments that there's tons of problems. So I think this physical health and mental, it's really important.
So famously, Johnny Depp is known to never ever watch his movies. Do you see yourself like Johnny Depp?
Oh,
I changed the question, sorry.
so what do you mean about the movies, or you mean the court case?
The craziness.
Craziness?
No, I'm referring to as the creator of the Dygma Raise and the Dygma Defy. Do you use your products? Do you use either? If you do, how has it changed you?
Okay.
Your way of working?
This question was scary, weird. I appreciate
But
it.
you liked
It turned this way. Not really. I was concerned.
You were concerned? I think you'd look good with a pirate.
With some hair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I use both of them. I would say I use more time the Raise than the Defy. I love the wireless connectivity from the Defy. I would love that to be on the Raise. And when we have the Raise 2, that would be a reality. I really like the thumb keys of the Defy too. That's something that I would like to have on the Raise. But at the same time, I like the staggered layout. Even though columnar layout is more ergonomic, I've gotten used to it. I really like it. I would say that I'm using both of them in different situations. I would say right now, the one that I'm using right now is the Raise. But I'm as fast typing both of them. And for example, switching from one to another, maybe it takes like 15 seconds or my brain to kind of calibrate. Once it kind of clicks in my brain, it's like I'm using any of both.
So I guess there's the transition between them is not that big for you.
Right now, it's not. When I was learning, it was more difficult. So for example, to get used to the layout, I had to remove the inner column keys, the keycaps, because for some reason my hands would go 1 unit inward. Even though I never look at the keyboard when I'm typing, it feels like somehow with my peripheral vision, my hands were going to the center. And also the thumb keys, I removed a few of the thumb keys.
For the Defy.
Yeah, to learn first a few set of thumb keys and then move on to the other ones. And once I did this, it's kind of like when you're on your bike and you have these little wheels, the same kind of concept, right? I made it simpler and then I learned how to use everything. By everything, I mean all the keys with the different layers and so on. Oh, and actually talking about layers, there's some layer keys that I've moved around from one keyboard to another. So this takes a little bit of time right now to adjust, right?
So you have different layers also for each keyboard?
Yeah, not many. It's just a few layer shift keys.
Okay. Do you have any advice to the people who are transitioning from the Raise or a staggered keyboard to a columnar keyboard such as the Defy?
Sure. So probably the first thing is learn touch typing. That would be the first thing. So I assume most people that are doing this transition already know touch typing. If you know touch typing, then probably what's gonna take the most time, the bottom row, probably you will have some issues with those keys. So Z, X, C, B on the classic QWERTY layout. Also in my case, but also I've seen other people that the hand position shifts 1 unit inward. Probably the best thing that you can do is if you remove the inner keys, so the inner column in both sides, it's gonna be easier to position your hands properly. And once you're used to positioning the hands properly, because fingers or your index are used to get lying on the F and the J. An important thing with the columnar keyboard is that your thumbs are not in the traditional space bar location. So this means that your thumbs need to get used to the keys and how you move through the keys. Once your these 4 fingers are used to the right position, your thumb is gonna have an easier time getting used to the location. And also a thing that you can do with the thumb cluster is that you can remove a few keys. So probably you're gonna have 3 to 4 keys that are extremely comfortable. Leave those ones on the keyboard. You can remove the rest of the keys. Get used to those ones first, and when you're used to it, then add the other keyboard. Probably these few things: touch typing and removing these keys, getting used to the position of your fingers that are not the thumbs, then getting used to the thumbs, then re-adding the keys. Probably these steps will help.
Nice. Thanks for your time, Luis. Of course, it's Christmas.
Ooh, that sound
great. Ooh, how did this happen? Now that we're in costume.
We're in Christmas, so
Yeah.
that's how it happened.
Of course. I just wanted to ask you my last question to end the video. Is there anything that you want for Christmas?
Yeah, that all the Defys are shipped.
All the Defys are, well, it has been. It will be.
Okay, so I guess I have to change my answer. That Santa gives a Defy to every kid that behaved properly. So if you bought a Defy and you haven't received it yet, maybe it's not customs.
It's because they've been naughty.
Maybe.
Exactly. Those who haven't received their Defy yet, it's because they've been naughty.
Hit the phone, Santa, what's going on?
Where the frick is my Defy? I'm gonna have the elves on you. You better
Send the Defy
send the Defy
right now.
Or else. Or elf.
Cut. So Dominique, thanks for this interview. It was, as usual, you've been a great host. So
Thank you, Luis.
no problem. I hope you continue being the face of Dygma for at least 6 more years, if not 20 or 30. Thank you very much.
And then afterwards, I'll buy the company from you.
Amazing, but remember that
You are
department
head.
is for me.
What will we do with Manel?
Pension?
He can be my assistant.
Your assistant?
He can be my secretary general.
Okay.
I've seen him
thought,
for.
I thought maybe he could retire early, maybe.
He is old.
That's why I'm saying early.
Yeah, okay. Alright, then perfect.